Hello and welcome to a bit of a beauty of a autumn day here in beautiful Nova Scotia. I'm in the shade here, but out there in the sun, the beautiful trees all around my property are glinting gold and red in the sunshine. And as you can see, I'm in shirt sleeves, and the boy up there is even in shorts and shirt sleeves as he's playing his little game. So it's a bit of a beauty of a day here in Nova Scotia. And as you can see, I am doing some raking. It's that time of year, obviously. It's literally raining leaves here today. And as you can see, I've got quite a few leaves to rake up. I've got trees literally on three sides of my property, and the property is about just under an acre, so there's a hell of a lot of leaves to rake up. And you would have thought that I would be rather annoyed about having to rake all those leaves up, and you'd be sort of half right. It is a bit of a time of year, but the rest of the garden's starting to run down now, so there's not much else for me to do in the garden. And I don't mind, because there are a range of reasons why it's an absolutely fantastic job to do, and obviously a fantastic job to do at this time of year. Now, the first reason is obviously leaves. Leaves are gardener's gold, soon to be black gardener's black gold. And absolutely, you wouldn't have thought, you may not know, these are an absolutely wonderful resource in the garden. They can be put to use to many different scenarios in the garden, which I'm going to go through in this video, and we'll come to that in a minute. So, you know, raking up the leaves and keeping them myself, not giving them to the council or putting them out for the bins or whatever you do, keeping them for myself. So we'll come to that in a moment. Secondly, it's a nice bit of exercise, bit of arm exercise, bit of walking. You might not always be out in the garden in autumn time, fall, as we say here in North America. It might not be an obvious reason for you to go out into the garden in the fall time, but getting out there in the garden is a massively important, both psychologically and physically. I've mentioned this before in some of my videos. You know, psychologically and physically, it's important to get out in the garden. You know, psychologically, just being out the garden and looking at man-made things is a natural de-stressor. It's a well-known, proven fact that, you know, you get out there looking at trees, don't have to hug them, just give them a quick look up and down, and that'll immediately start to bring your stress levels down. Just doing the actual raking itself, you know, takes your mind, you're not thinking about anything else. So again, that is going to help you psychologically to de-stress, not think about anything, but just doing a bit of raking. And then obviously we've got the physical benefits of raking. You know, half an hour's raking every day or every other day during this sort of raking season is going to help your cardiovascular. It's going to help your arms. It's going to help, you know, just walking around, moving the leaves here and there. It's going to help you, and I'll need that at the moment because I've put a bit of weight over the last few weeks, not been getting out and about, so I need to do a bit of raking exercise. So physically and psychologically, brilliant for you. And another reason that you may not immediately be thinking, the environment, climate change. Raking your leaves, saving those leaves, and then using leaf mould and sieved leaf mould is, you know, in my small way, helping climate change, because number one, as I'm going to come to in a moment, using that sort of leaf mould and sieve leaf mould instead of peat-based composts or buying composts, etc., is going to help reduce, obviously, the destruction of peat bogs, which are natural carbon stores. So, you know, whenever you get a bag of a peat-based compost, peat-based soil, potting soil, That comes from a peat bog. And, you know, as well as it being a wildlife habitat for many different species of both flora and fauna, it's also a carbon sequester, a carbon sump. And every time they take peat out of those peat bogs, destroying those peat bogs, carbon is put up into the air, excuse me, is released into the atmosphere and increasing the climate change and all of the bad things that releasing carbon into the atmosphere does. So, if we're using this leaf mould, this leaves, and storing them, creating leaf mould, using that instead of actual peat-based composts, then you are helping the environment. You're also helping the environment by not using the plastic bags that the peat comes in, etc., etc. So, there's less. I use now the old plastic bags that I used to get with compost to store my leaf mould and my compost, etc., ready to be used on my seedlings and all that sort of stuff. So, I'm using old plastic and I'm not creating new plastic by buying that compost, and I'm not using that peat-based compost. So in my small way and in your small way, you could be helping the environment and the climate and helping my son and your sons and daughters in the future by, just helping that little bit with climate change. And I think that is massively important, and that makes me happy in a small way by doing this. So it takes away the pain of having to rake up all of these leaves in the autumn time. So let's have a little look at what we can do with the leaves to make that leaf mould and use it in the different scenarios around the garden. So I just realised I forgot one of the other reasons why you want to rake your leaves up. Save a bit of money. Like I said, I'm now not buying compost from outside, and all that money for a bag of compost, a bag of peat, whatever it is you're sort of buying, that mounts up, gets quite expensive, a good $100 or so per year, even more, people with big gardens and lots of pots, etc., etc. So by creating my own leaf mould, compost, etc., then I'm saving a bit of money, and you could be saving a bit of money. So you're investing in your future in that way as well. So, got all these leaves. What we're going to do with them? Well, there's a few different ways you can actually use the leaves. You could just put them on your raised beds. Like I said, I find that way, it's a bit hit and miss. It's a bit fiddly putting stuff over it. The leaves can blow away, etc. So I prefer to sort of indirectly put them on my actual beds. What I do is I have got in here, I'm lucky, I've got a decent sized garden. So at the back here, I've created quite a big, as you can see, chicken wide sort of area. And I put all of my, get all my leaves, rake them all up, and in they go in here. But actually, first of all, what I do now is I chop them up. If you don't chop them up, it will take a good, couple of years for them to sort of break down really well. If you chop them up, and I've got a shredder, so I'm lucky there again that I've got a shredder, I can chop them up nice and small, then they'll take about a year to break down. If you haven't got a leaf shredder or anything like that, then a lawnmower, just put all your leaves into an area and just go over them with the lawnmower, and then re-rake them into your sort of pile and put them where you're going to store them. Now, if you haven't got a big chicken wire area like me, just you can put them in with your compost. Let's have a look at that. So this is all a bit mixed up, but you know, when you're doing your compost, you've got your green stuff, which is full of nitrogen, all your brand new, at this time of year we're chopping down tomato plants and all the peppers and leaves, all sorts of green things anyway. That's got lots of nitrogen. And that's great, but we want to balance it up when we're making a compost and get things with a bit of carbon in there. And all the carbon stuff is your brown stuff. And leaves, obviously, your brown stuff. So that's all your dead stalks, etc. But leaves are a great resource to balance up your compost. So that you've got a load of green stuff you put in there, all your grass clippings, things like that. But then you've got your leaves and balance them up. Get a good 50 brown stuff, 50 green stuff. That will do your compost nicely. And that's just an easy way to use your leaves. But I prefer to use my leaves in a pure, on their own sort of way. So let's have a look at that, shall we? So, as I said, I've raked all my leaves up. I've given them a good shredding, made them small. You don't have to. And this is what it looks like after about a year. So you can see that, look, nice, light and crumbly, but a bit rough. So this is brilliant stuff to be putting on your beds, whether it be your flower beds or your veg beds. At this time of year now, it's a great thing. I like to cover my garlic. So I've just planted garlic. I'll put a load of this on the garlic, or we could do this. So I've got a nice bed of carrots here that I've sort of sowed these in late August, early September, and they're coming on nicely. And I cover them with some horticultural fleece over in the night times, as these nights are getting colder and we get frost, etc. Now, later on, towards, well, easily from November onwards, we could be frosting up and freezing up the ground here. So any of your root vegetables, putting down a nice mulch, a couple of inches of, you know, just like you would normally put a mulch down around the carrots, will provide them that little bit of extra protection as the winter draws on, and I'll be able to keep them growing and keep picking them for a longer period. And there's nothing like walking out to the back garden, dusting off a bit of snow and picking some carrots for Christmas dinner. Absolutely beautiful. By the way, talk of an absolutely beautiful, check out the tree behind me. What an absolute peach against the sort of bluish sky there. She's an absolute Bobby Dazzler. But there we go. I'm going to finish this off and then join you back at the leaf mould bin. But a great resource, just gives that little air gap around the carrots to provide that little bit more protection as the winter draws on. Also, if you've not got a bed with anything in it at all, it's a great protection for the soil itself, and a couple of inches of that will protect the soil. Plus, like I said, the worms and all the different insects, etc., will be pulling the leaf mould down into the ground, working it into the soil, and you're not disturbing anything. You're letting nature do the job, and it's also protecting from weeds. An absolute bonus. So that's this good rough and ready stuff. That's great as that mulch, like I said, and that'll break down nicely over the winter, over the next year, and be broken down and taken down into the earth by the worms and all the other little insects, etc. And that'll produce a real great resource and make your soil just that much better. So that's that rough stuff. Now, after a couple of years, it will look like this. So it'll look a little bit rougher than what I'm about to show you, but I've sieved this, and as you can see, Look at that, absolutely beautiful sieved leaf mould. Now I know I keep going on about it. That is gardener's gold, gardener's black gold, definitely. Now I can use that as a perfect potting mix for my seedlings, or for my seeds rather. So I will plant seeds directly in that. As it got loads of nutrients, and seeds don't need, and seedlings don't need lots of nutrients to start with, but it holds the water, but it also drains well as well. I know that's a bit of a, was it a dichotomy? But you know, that's the thing. It's a really good, the seeds will germinate. It's nice and light enough and airy enough for them to germinate. It will take the water, but it won't get waterlogged too much. It's not got too many nutrients, so they won't go shooting up. But for the first couple of weeks, you know, until they get their sort of first true leaves, the seedlings will absolutely love this leaf mould, proper natural stuff. And like I said, you're not using peat. You're not using any peat-based products, and that is so important. I know, you know, a lot in maybe in sort of Canada here and in North America. I'm not too sure about America. It's still not thought of as such a big thing, but you know, it's massively important that we stop destroying the peat bogs. And this is an easy way. Call it an investment. You're investing in yourself by saving yourself a bit of money, and you're investing in the future of the planet by having this in your very own back garden. No petrol miles on this, and no peat bogs destroyed. So that is fantastic stuff. Now, is that it? We've got the leaves, we stored them for about a year. Now, if, like I said, if you haven't got, you know, this is my sort of secondary bin here. You could have a bin this size and just put them in if you've only got that side of the garden, or just get a bag. Now, I would have usually used a black plastic bag, but again, I'm trying not to use plastic bags. So let's have a look at what I'm going to use this year. So again, I'm trying to reuse as much as is possible. So when I go down to the local farm, the local stables, and I get my horse manure down there so that I can put that in the compost heap, etc, etc. The lady down there gave me, or gives me, a load of her feed bags, horse feed bags. And again, instead of her chucking it away, she's given it to me, and I reuse these this year to grow potatoes in. But I can also store some leaves in there. I could store a bag of leaves, stick it round the back of your shed or whatever you've got. You want to keep it out of sight, obviously. Put some holes in it. Now, if you really want to use a black plastic bag, fine. But again, let's try and reuse rather than use. Maybe use one of your old potting soil bags. Fill it with leaves. Put some holes in it to get some air into there. Give it a bit of a water so that they've got some dampness to start the breaking down sort of cycle. Stick it round the back, and in a year's time, like I said, we'll have this sort of stuff, and in a couple of years' time you'll have really beautiful, light, crumbly black gold. And again, I know it's a couple of years, but let's think about investing in ourselves in this way. And it's just fantastic stuff. So there we go. Leaf mould. The different ways you can use it, and it is absolutely fantastic. Job's a good one. Might go out and have a sunbathe, I think. Beautiful.